Mrs. H. So I've got some notes on the Russian Revolution that you're going to need to copy down. It's going to help us get ready for Animal Farm. Now, I will warn you, some of it might have kind of a lot, at least on the surface, that it looks like you need to write. You can definitely like shorten things or just kind of summarize as you need, but just make sure that you are taking careful notes because we're going to be, I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say we're going to talk about these characters, although they're real life people, for the next few weeks or so. We used to give out this handout, and obviously we're not doing that now because, you're home and all that. But what you might do in your English 9 notebook, so that's the notebook that you should have at home. And if you don't have like an official English 9 notebook, please get one, or it can just be some notebook paper in a folder that's just for English 9. Okay. Your grammar goes in there. You've got allegory notes in here, and now you're going to have Russian Revolution notes in here. So you can draw these little triangles because when you look at the video that I'm going to be showing you, it's going to have a triangle of like power to show where all the power gets delegated. And there'll be things that you'll write on the triangles, and then you can add like some notes on the ruler on the other side, so the person in charge. So if you wanted to kind of split up your notebook paper that way, that'd be an idea. Just so you could see, like, I did this years ago, but just to kind of show you like how many notes you might have. So again, it's not a ton, and I kind of write big, but anyway, so you can see why having both sides might be beneficial to you. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So again, like I've said, this is super, super duper important because the Animal Farm novel by George Orwell, which we're going to talk more specifically about him in the next class notes. But this is an allegory of the Russian Revolution. So in order to be able to analyze it as such and understand that, what all that means, and you do need to know what the Russian Revolution was and who are the people involved. So basically, and this would be like if you're doing a triangle deal, I would put a triangle here for the Tsar Nicholas II. Again, pause the video as needed. Years aren't necessary. I'm not going to ever quiz you and have you tell me what year was he the monarch or whatever. But you will need to know that, he was kind of the first dude that we're talking about here. Bad guy. And it almost seems like every guy that came after the one before was even worse. So poor Russia, right? So anyway, bad situation with him as the ruler in charge. What happened to my thing? There we go. I'm sorry. So with the Tsar, one man's in charge. Okay, there's followed next for the power would be the aristocracy. Okay, so you can see that would be like the rich people who held a lot of money, wealth, power. Beneath them would be the military. The military is pretty powerful. And then underneath that, make the agriculture, so the farming, right, and industry, so factories, businesses. So in a country that's ruled with a czar, and especially the Tsar Nicholas II, czar's in charge, one guy, aristocracy second, where the money is, right, then the military, then the industry, business and farming. Okay. So I think it's going to show, this slide player thing is being really weird today, so stand by, but there should be one more thing in here. And of course, it's not going to play. But at the very bottom, you should write down, if it doesn't pop up here in a second, the proletariat. There we go, the proletariat. So these are workers from the private farms and the industry. And these are owned by the aristocracy. Remember, the people with money have a lot of power. So when we talk about the proletariat, that's a lot of people. Most of us would probably fall into that proletariat category if we lived during this time. So you can see the distribution of power, not a lot of power down here, not a lot of people, up here in the power. But the triangle gets bigger down here. So most people, millions of people, are just going to be like the workers. So Nicholas, again, bad dude. He was an emperor, obviously, and Tsar just means power from God. You don't necessarily need to write that down. The only thing I would necessarily make note of during his rule is that, Russia was behind in many areas. People were hungry. The nation was poor because they'd been devastated by World War I. And Nicholas was a self-appointed ruler. So he was like, I am the ruler. I was born to be in charge of all of you. Okay, so that's Nicholas. Now, if you're a triangle drawer, you're going to put another triangle down in your notes. Oh, sorry. Okay, well, we already talked about this, so I'm just going to skip through that. Yeah, right. He got overthrown. I forgot about that part. So then our next dude, we've got this. It was a transition to Lenin, but before you get to Lenin, I'm going to have you do a triangle on Marx, this Karl Marx guy. So this was what communism, he had this view of communism, of how it could be a good thing for Russia. Now, Lenin and Stalin did some other things with it, but the original, we're just going to look at what the idea behind a communist country as envisioned by Karl Marx would have looked like. So get ready to make a triangle, okay? So here you have no man in charge. Everybody's in charge of themselves, okay? Sounds all nice and pretty, right? You've got your collectively owned agriculture and collectively owned industry. So if you're in your first triangle, you saw that, oh, come on. I'm sorry. I'm not used to this thing. Let's let it do its thing. Why don't I just use Google Slides? I don't know. Okay. Let's put a pause on that. All right. Sorry about that. So you have, in this case, in this communist society, you would have everybody owns the farming and the businesses together. Sounds nice, right? Nobody's in charge of you. Everybody owns everything. Obviously, though, there's a lot of problems that could happen from that. But on the surface, you think, oh, the property is publicly owned, everybody works, and you're paid per your abilities and needs, right? Karl Marx was a German philosopher, so he had kind of good intentions, I think. You can see from this, the equality was the basis behind it. And another key component was that everyone had to be part of the military. So power and wealth evenly distributed. Sounds pretty. There's some countries, obviously, that are, I'm not going to go back to it because it's getting on my nerves, that are communist countries that have the mandatory military service, North and South Korea, for example. But the original intent, if you just look at it on paper or on your triangle, it doesn't seem so bad. So again, like you can see on here, the communists, they really wanted to govern themselves, especially after things were getting bad, and they wanted to collectively own, everybody has the equal amount of money, it's going to be great, in charge of ourselves. So that's known as socialism. Socialists get a bad reputation, and I think, now there are some things that, a lot of the socialist principles or ideas could result in higher taxes for people, but if you just look at it, strip away the names and the people involved in it, the basic bottom line, socialism, the communist thing, their intentions, I think, were halfway decent. All right, so our next thing, and we have to wait for the little slide player to go. I'm really sorry. Next time, Google Slides all the way. Okay, you're getting on my nerves too. All right, so now we have this transition. Well, okay, sorry, we're still talking about communism. Basically, again, utopian, like perfect society. Like, wouldn't this be great? But then we've got this guy Lenin, because that wasn't going to work out forever, right? So Lenin comes along. You're going to make another triangle for Lenin, Lenin. And he really took the communist socialist ideals to the extreme. So under Lenin's rule, sorry about the bell, he was in charge, right? There's one dude in charge. And so it's starting to look like our first triangle when we were under Nicholas II. So we have the Communist Party, the political party that was created during this time, right? They were very, very powerful. You can see that'd be kind of bad news bears if you were not in the Communist Party. And not everyone was, but we'll talk about that. So then you have the agriculture, so the farms and the industry would be next. And they were more modernized than they were with Nicholas II. Then you've got the military underneath that. Look how far the military has fallen. Military used to have a top triangle. Now it's a little further down. And then you've got workers. So again, millions of people. Can't stress that enough, that most of the people don't have a lot of power. They're doing all of the work. So the whole idea behind communism is getting thrown out the window, because these people that are working a lot and putting the society together should get a lot of stuff, right? Well, that didn't happen, as you might imagine. Really bad dude. So let's continue on. Oh, yeah. So wealth and the poor, we get that. Yes, thank you. Okay. Yep, great. Moving up. All right. So then we have this idea of the Russian Revolution. So Stalin, which we'll get to him in a second, and Lenin, they were buddy old pals. And they were like, you know what? We can make things happen. So they, are you kidding me? I'm so sorry. This thing is temperamental. All right. So the Soviets gained popular support because they've said, hey, look, if you guys just work, you'll get land, you'll get bread, you'll get peace. It'll be great. If you were suspected as being anti-communist, you would be killed. So that's not good. But, Lenin especially wanted to improve the military. He wanted to educate. They promised all of these things. But then, and Lenin and Stalin at first were buddy old pals. And that did not last, as you probably can imagine. Somebody's always got to be only room for one person at the top of those triangles, right? So then our next one here, we've got, okay, I already talked about this. They wanted to modernize the industries. They wanted to get rid of the upper class. But did they get rid of the upper class if they just replaced it with a different name, the Communist Party? No. I tell you, they think we're silly. Okay, so again, Lenin, you should be writing this next to Lenin's triangle. This was all his goal. He wanted to provide things. Again, he wasn't a good dude. Some of the stuff makes it look like, oh man, that's not so bad. Look at, why does Lenin get a bad rap? Again, he's not a good dude, but he wasn't as bad as Stalin. I will say that. So Stalin's like, you know what? I want to have power. So in 1918, the Red Army, led by Trotsky, who was like a little rat, not literally a little rat, but he was in cahoots with Stalin. They identified and executed the anti-communists. So that was a bad deal. Bad day if you were anti-communist. And then there was a civil war that came out between 1980. So this is that Russian Revolution we're talking about, 1918, 1921. Okay? Bad thing. Then in 1922, Lenin died before he could see this new thing, and then a power struggle happened between Trotsky and Stalin, and of course everybody wants to be at the top of the pyramid. So guess who won? Well, you're probably going to get it right. It was Stalin. Stalin won. Yay. Trotsky was run out of power, and Stalin's the guy behind the secret police, the KGB. That's going to be important, I guess, character, if you want to call it that, I'll go back to that real quickly, in Animal Farm. So Trotsky, bye-bye. Trotsky does not get his own triangle. I'm so sorry. Just remember, the thing to write down about Trotsky is that he was in charge of the Red Army, and that, he kind of wanted to be in power. He was buddies with Stalin too, but Stalin's like, no, I'm in charge. So now we have a triangle for Stalin. Oh, Stalin, you were a really bad dude. So, not sure where my triangle is. Oh, for the love. I'm sorry. I don't know why it's not loading. Well, we'll wait and give it a chance to see if it's going to do its thing. Oh, there we go. Okay. So you have one man, Stalin, surprise, surprise. The secret police, the KGB, next. Okay. Look at that power. Even more powerful than the military. So it's like if our president had his own little police force that was like spying on people, they would have more power than like the Navy and the Army and the Marines. It's crazy to imagine, but that's how it was. Then you've got your agriculture and industry. So a lot of like force, and you can see why Stalin got a bad rap because, well, he was a bad dude, really bad dude. But a lot of guns. A lot of guns here, people. Okay, then you have the proletariat. Remember that term again. So these are basically just the workers. Now, the government owned the farms and industry, which was Stalin, because he was the government, right? One man. And remember, that was kind of a basic ideal of communism, was that the government controls stuff. That's what communism has turned into. It wasn't the original intent. But again, millions of people doing the work. Common thread. So, bad guy. Then, basically, when Stalin took over, Russia was renamed Soviet Union. Okay, and he screwed everything up. So you need to know that Stalin, Soviet Union. He had a 5-year plan, okay? And again, years aren't necessarily super important, like I'm never going to ask you about 1928. But he had a 5-year plan, and during his plan, he was going to improve the industry, really make everything wonderful and great, but it ended up being very oppressive, and they used to do a lot of really bad things to people to try to get Russia better, even if it meant doing a purge. Yes, that's right. So he maintained his power, as you can see, by using terror. He scared people. So he had spies, KGB, Cheka. That's the same thing. They were basically a bunch of spies. If you were, I'll go back to that really quickly. And these were like advertisements that would come out basically warning people to keep their mouth shut. And you could never say anything bad about Stalin or you're dead. Okay, so high-ranking officials got arrested. So basically, if he thought that they were saying bad things about him, this is Stalin we're talking about, for the love, then he would, even if he didn't like them, let's just say somebody looked at him weird. So he would arrest them, make them, like torture them into confessing to some imagined crime, and then he would kill them. So there's a live picture, some people that were killed. So it's like, I don't want to use the example of our president, but let's say someone in power, they had someone that worked in their office, and they're like, you know what? People seem to like that guy. I don't want any competition. I'm going to have him killed. So he would like arrest him, and then basically that was a death sentence if you were arrested. He's told the people, he's like, oh, I'm just protecting you. This was a bad guy. You don't want anything to do with this. I'm here for you, says Stalin. But these people were like starving and things were going really bad. I mean, they had been better for a time since Nicholas II was gone, but they were slowly deteriorating because his big plans never really happened. Okay, so that's bad. All right, so in addition, he also controlled all of the media. That's bad. What does that sound like? North Korea, right? It's exactly like in North Korea. So basically, well, and in like some places, oh, for the love, in China, like there's certain like apps and things like that that can't be used, and the whole debacle with TikTok. Oh, heaven forbid, TikTok being banned here. I'm not saying that Trump is Stalin, but I'm just saying that it's that type of idea. Or it would be like if a president said, you know what, the only news channel that's going to be allowed to be on TV is this one channel. That's bad, right? Like nobody, I teach this all the time in my speech class, no one should get all of their news from just CNN or just Fox or just MSNBC or whatever you want to do. You've got to look at, a variety of media sources. So just having one or two and only the ones that are going to say good things about you, that's bad. So, basically Stalin was rewriting history, or at least attempting to rewrite history with all of that. Okay. I think we're about done. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh my. This is a picture of people that were in office, and he would have them, like the picture, now this is a really kind of a crappy example, but he would have them literally erased from history, or in this case, pictures, to say, oh no, they never worked here. I don't even know those guys. This is another example of how you can see, oh, for the love. Okay, my computer is possessed by demons. But he would cut people out of the pictures to show that they, completely manipulated the media. That's not a good thing, guys. So basically with the bottom line with your notes, you should have 4 triangles on your paper. You should have a triangle for the Tsar, Nicholas II. You should have one for Marx, basically what communism was, so no man, collectively owned, blah, blah, blah. You should have one for Lenin, and you should have one for Stalin. And then, I've got just a few notes written in here on the side. So make sure you've got something else down. I'll leave that up there for a second if you wanted to copy some of those. But some of the things that I talked about, maybe some of the things that were on the slide, make sure you have that down. And then in our next class, like I said, I'll talk to you more about Animal Farm, the book itself, and George Orwell. We'll watch a cutesy little video. Make sure that you're staying on top of your assignments, the attendance quiz, super, super important. You have to do that attendance quiz. I don't care I do care how many assignments you turn in, but you've got to do the attendance quiz or I have to mark you absent. So make sure you're getting that done. Message me if you have questions, and we'll talk soon.